Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Man, today we'll be continuing with our series of taking life lessons from music around us. Today, the song of choice is Kendrick Lamar's Father Time from his album Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Without further ado, let's get into it.
You really need some therapy.
Real nigga need no therapy. Fuck you talking about?
You sound stupid as fuck.
Shit, everybody's stupid.
Yeah, well, you need to talk to somebody. Reach out to Eckhart.
By Eckhart, I'm assuming they mean the author, right? Eckhart Tolle. I think I saw someone like that on Oprah's podcast.
I come from a generation of home invasions, and I got daddy issues, that's on me. Everything them four walls that taught me, may habits buried deep. That man knew a lot, but not enough to keep me past them streets. My life is a plot, twisted from directions that I can't see. Daddy issues all across my head, told me fuck a foul, I'm teary-eyed. Wanna throw my hands, I won't think out loud, a foolish pride. If I lose again, won't go in the house, I stayed outside. Laughing with my friends, they don't know my life. Daddy issues made me learn losses, I don't take those well. Mama said that boy is exhausted, he said go fuck yourself. If he give up now, let's go cost him. Life's a bitch, you could be a bitch or step out the margin. I got up quick, I'm charging baskets and falling backwards, trying to keep balance. Oh, this the part where mental stability meets talent. Oh, this the part he breaks my humility just for practice. Tactics we learn together, sore losers forever. Daddy
Early morning
issues.
wake ups, practicing on day up.
So I'll give my feedback and then we'll be taking some stuff from Genius. The first thing that I pick up from the first verse is it starts out with I come from a generation of home invasions. This means two things. One of the main things, home invasions, this was the police when they would come into neighborhoods and trying to arrest people for drug dealing and selling and stuff. So trying to find you unaware and catch you unaware. Kendrick opens the first verse with a description of his environment as a child. This may be a callback or a call forward to the opening line on the Hard Part 5, come from a generation of pain where murder is minor. Lama explains how his violent surroundings and family problems are not something he can ignore simply because they weren't his fault. The generational trauma they've caused are now his responsibility to overcome, a recurring theme throughout Mr. Morale, particularly in Mother I Sober. The home invasion theme also harkens back to October 2012, Out of Peer Pressure from Lamar's major label debut Good Kid, Mad City, a song about narrowly escaping a robbery, pull in front of a house that we'd be camping out of like 2 months. And the one thing that I really like about Kendrick is how his music, whilst he's talking about his story, it's something that you can relate to. Home invasions, like I say, the first interpretation of it was police coming into people's houses and trying to catch them. That was an invasion. And then there's also an invasion of, like, I'm from Zimbabwe, where we didn't really have such issues as Americans have, but we also have home invasions whereby people will come and try and rob you. So depending on the places that you stayed. So I come from such situation, and it's easy to relate to this thing that he's talking about. The men knew a lot, but not enough to keep me past them streets. My life is a plot twist. My life is a plot twisted from directions that I can't see. Clever play in the term of plot twist, a technique used in films and literature to introduce a radical change in the direction of a story. Interestingly, Kendrick describes his life as a plot or a stage similar to an observer watching a theater play unfolding before his or her very eyes, with no clue on how the story ends. In his second studio album, Good Kid, Mad City, Kendrick also details his life story from an observer point of view. As an adolescent growing up in the midst of a gang culture in Compton, in Kendrick's case, despite the strong foundation his father tried to instill in him, by keeping him out of the streets, his life had taken some unforeseen turns or plots or twists as he was influenced by some of his friends who were gangbangers. This is also touched heavily in songs such as The Art of Peer Pressure. Listen, the thing that happens a lot of times when you're kids is parents try to overprotect their children, and in a sense that results in when you do that, you take away, because a lot of times what parents will do is, okay, in order to take care of my kid, I have to work, I have to do a lot of things, and then not be available for that child. So in search of that love and attention, people then end up being influenced into things like gang banging and doing weird stuff like that growing up. So I really like how he speaks about that and how his father really tried to help him. And that's just how life is full of plot and twists, because in trying to avoid certain things, it's like we end up pushing our kids into those same things. Yeah. Daddy issues ball across my head told me FFL, I'm teary eyed, want to throw my hands, I won't think out loud. Kendrick is probably alluding to a childhood experience with his dad playing basketball. His dad dismissed Kendrick's foul call and went on to hoop. Understandably, for a child, Kendrick got very upset. However, due to his emotional distance from his father, he did not voice his feelings. Instead, he kept quiet. This experience encapsulates Kendrick's damaged relationship with his tough dad. Right. So we'll be continuing to the chorus in verse 2.
Tough love, bottled up, no chase I need, no chase I need, no chase I need, no chase I need, no chase. Early morning wake ups, practicing on day offs. Tough love, bottled up, no chase I need, no chase I need, no chase I need, no chase I need, no chase I need.
The other thing that we pick up without going further from the chorus is neat refers to a lack of ice or mixers in beverage, and the chaser is something you drink or eat after taking a strong shot to help combat the unpleasant taste of sensation from the alcohol. The chorus uses this images as a metaphor for bottled up emotions. Being tough and suppressing your emotions, like swallowing your drink straight up and having to deal with the alcohol's full effects. Within the narrative of the song, the chorus reflects how Kendrick had to force himself to bury his feelings because that's what his dad had taught him a man should do. By extension, he and Safa are commenting on the psychological issues that can develop in a young man when their potential bond is rooted in societal pressures of stereotypical masculinity. Kendrick has maintained on many occasions that he doesn't drink or smoke. Regardless, he has a history of discussing alcoholism in his music. On July 2012, Swimming Pools, he delved into his grandfather's alcoholism, and on March 2015, he rapped from the perspective of being intoxicated. It's always fascinating how these interpretations of songs come out across. For me, how I saw it was essentially that early morning wake ups. You wake up to your father drinking. You know, we grew up in situations where our parents would drinking. Like I would have my friends, I'll go to their houses because I didn't have a father in my household. So you go to their house and their fathers were drunk, let's say on a Friday night, and then they wake up on the Saturday drinking. And the way that I'd taken this was that what it meant. Like early morning, you wake up to a drunk man in the house and you're like, yo, what's going on for a kid? And you're exposed to stuff like that, which ends up creating daddy issues and lack of trust in men as you grow up because you're like, man, what the hell? Moving on to verse 2.
Daddy issues, that's on me. Looking for I love you, really empathizing for my relief. A child that grew accustomed, jumping up when I scrape my knee. Cause if I cried about it, he surely tell me not to be weak. Daddy issues, hit my emotions, never express myself. Man should never show feelings, being sensitive never helped. His mama died, I asked her why he going back to work so soon. His first reply was, son, that's life and bills got no silver spoon. Daddy issues, fuck everybody. Go get your money, son, protect yourself. Trust nobody, only your mama knows. This made relationships seem cloudy, never attached to none. So if you took some likings around me, I might reject the love. Daddy issues kept me competitive, that's a fact, nigga. I don't give a fuck what's the narrative. I am that nigga. When Kanye got back with Drake, I was slightly confused. Guess I'm not mature as I think, got some healing to do. Egotistic, zero giving fucks, and to be specific, need assistance with the way I was brought up. What's the difference when your heart is made of stone and your mind is made of gold and your tongue is made of sword? But it may weaken your soul. My niggas ain't got no daddy. Grow up overcompensating. Learn shit about being a man in disguise as being gangster. I love my father for telling me to take off the gloves, cause everything he didn't want was everything I was. And to my partners that figured it out without a father, I salute you. May your blessings be neutral to your toddlers. It's crucial. They can't stop us if we see the mistakes. Till then, let's give the women a break. Grown men with daddy issues.
Yeah, so let's step into verse 2. From Genius, they go. Daddy issues hit my emotions, never express myself. Men should never show feelings, being sensitive never helped. According to this, probably his father grew up in a pretty macho environment, in a nutshell, in another era, and that was what he transmitted to him because he was educated that way. And obviously, he thought it was the right thing to do to prevent your child from suffering difficult times, but at the same time, all those kinds of behaviors and beliefs have been discarded, and that is what has caused conflicts and confusion in Kendrick's psyche. So what tends to happen a lot of times is you know, unfortunately, history doesn't favor a lot of us because what tended to happen was we were in survival mode. We were in survival situations that you needed to survive. And there was a certain code of conduct that you had to carry yourself with that we never moved out of. So when you're in slavery, there was no time to feel bad because if you feel sad, if you feel like what's going on was hampering you, then in those moments, you know, it's about survival. It's not about how you feel. And I feel like we never progressed past that. That trauma never left especially African Americans. But when you look at Africans in general as well, because of colonization, that's how strong men were built because you had to be strong willed. So you didn't have the time to feel. It was just time to protect and do. But what tends to happen is when things became natural and we became sensitive and how we feel started to matter, parents did not know, like, oh, how do I navigate this? How do I help my kids navigate how they're feeling? Which is what he's talking about. And those are the daddy issues, whereby what tends to happen is men became abusive and women started going, yo, you're not really feminine. And now that women have a voice, it's like, oh, we start to recognize those daddy issues. And then he goes on to say, when Kanye got back with Drake, I was slightly confused. Guess I'm not mature as I think. Got some healing to do. Kanye West and Drake were involved in a years-long beef that escalated in the late summer and fall of 2021 alongside the release cycles of their respective albums, Donda and Certified Lover Boy. The two were long collaborators before the feud began in May 2018 when Pusha T and Drake exchanged diss tracks that eventually resulted in Pusha releasing the story of Adidas. The song exposed Drake for hiding his illegitimate child from the world, a secret that Drake told Kanye in confidence, according to an October 2018 interview with The Shop. Drake believed that Ye betrayed his trust by leaking the information to Pusha. However, Pusha disputed this in an October 2018 interview on the Joe Biden podcast. He clarified these details came directly from a woman who was sleeping with Drake's producer, Noah Forty Shabib. The two parties and their associates would exchange disses in the ensuing years, including Drake's September 2021 track, 7 a.m. on Bridle Path, and Kanye's Life of the Party, which Drake leaked the day after the release of his album. Each side's engaged in the more public space, Kanye posting Drake's home address on his Instagram profile and Drake posting a response on his social media. On November 7, Rapalo CEO and friend mentor to Drake, Jay Prince, met with Kanye post-discussion. Kanye filmed a public apology to Drake asking if they could put aside their differences once and for all. The pair squashed their beef on November 17. And then they shared videos of themselves acting friendly in the studio, and they went on to perform a joint concert in LA's Coliseum in December 9, 2021. Meanwhile, Kendrick has a history with Drake and Kanye having collaborated with them multiple times and toured along them in 2012 and 2013 respectively. However, these bars allude most prominently to Lamar's well-known beef with Drake in contrast to Kanye's apparent mentorship, which dates back to the aforementioned Yeezus tour. On Father Time, a song detailing the masculine values and self-pride enforced by his father, Kendrick projects these teachings onto Drake and Kanye's situation. However, he also acknowledges the shortcomings in his father's message, looking within for clarity on why peace between two men would bother him if he truly believed in his own message of unity. And I truly believe in this. When Kanye got back with Drake, I was slightly confused. Guess I'm not mature as I think. I got some healing to do. What tends to happen a lot of times is we grow up with these values and we understand that once things go wrong, then they can never go right. It's impossible for us to. What do you mean we could be friends again when things have gone array? I can forgive him, but I can never forget what happened. The debt cannot be paid because you did what you did. Keep the same energy, right? And this is what Kendrick is talking about in this part of the song. Egotistic, zero given F's to the specific, need assistance with the way I was brought up. With Whitney's help, Kendrick finally realizes how his ego is affecting his own mental health and the well-being of those around him. He acknowledges finally that he needs therapy to unpack his life trauma and become a better person. Eckhart's message is all about addressing your ego, and clearly Whitney thought he would be best suited to help Kendrick move from where he is to where he could be. What's the difference when your heart is made of stone and your mind is made of gold and your tongue is made of sword, but it may weaken your soul? Saying you have a heart of stone means you have a cruel nature, which contrasts the imagery of having a mind of gold. Saying you have a kind and generous disposition, Kendrick just juxtaposes these intentions to show the conflict of our daily lives, where we struggle to maintain our identity of who we truly are and put that type of energy we want to project onto others. Having a tongue made of sword can be seen as having a sharp tongue and tendency to say very critical things to people. When everyone is speaking in a critical way of one another, That only perpetuates the cycle of unrealistic expectations. By continuing this, we are all guilty of putting down one another and weakening ourselves because we try to follow the exact same toxic expectations of overcompensating for the insecurities in our lives and projecting them onto others. Then shit about being a man in disguise as being a gangster. Gangster movies are seen by many as the pinnacle of masculinity, which is the reason why so many rappers try in different ways to emulate them. The core ethos and attitudes of organized crime resonate heavy in black communities, and many take their cues on what it means to be a man from them. In addition, many black males who grew up without fathers look to the men in their neighborhoods for mentors and father figures in the inner cities. These men are oftentimes leading criminal lives and classify themselves as gangsters, so they teach these youth the negative and toxic attitudes and behaviors that were taught and the cycle has is thus perpetuated. I think in this line, then shit about being a man in disguise as being gangster. The thing is, a lot of times as young men, we are very impressionable and we're constantly looking for someone to influence us and to help us understand who we are and find a path in life, to see who you are and become that. Because a lot of times you don't know how to become the thing that you want to become. So you're constantly looking for any form of influence. And a lot of times it just looks like something that you want. A lot of times you just want to have a nice car, you want to have a nice girlfriend, a nice house, a nice life. And a lot of times what tends to happen is people who get educated, people who have degrees, work C-suite jobs, when they get money, they move out of neighborhoods. And so the only person you can ever look up to who has a better situation than your own is drug dealers, gangsters in the neighborhood. When you watch movies, the person that you can relate to the most is a gangster rather than a lawyer or somebody who you never see who thinks they're better than you. So a lot of times when you have people who think they're better than you don't really want to be like them. You want to be someone who represents you. And a lot of times, I understand for African Americans, it would be the gangsters, the drug dealers, and fundamentally throughout the world, when we watch movies, the people we all can relate to is those people who come from the slums and make something of themselves, especially without the need of education and going to school and becoming a different human being. They still speak the language and they have the money and they have the women, you know. I love my father for telling me to take off the gloves because everything he didn't want was everything I was. The idiom take off the gloves or the gloves come off are common phrases meaning to fight and compete ferociously with no restraints. The expression is believed to originate from boxing. In boxing, gloves are used to protect the fighter's fist but also to limit injuries to the fighter receiving the hits. Hence, removing the gloves would lead to much a competitive duel. Kendrick recalls how Kenny Duckworth, his father, was encouraging him to fight aggressively in order to achieve everything life could offer. The gloves could also refer to black leather gloves worn by gangsters during shootouts and robberies to conceal fingerprints. Duckworth telling Kendrick to take off the gloves could also be seen as wanting to keep him off the streets as to not repeat the same errors he had. It's believed that Duckworth used to be involved in a Southside gang called Gangsters Disciples. Kendrick has alluded to his father instructing him to stay away from the street life in songs such as Real. The line, because everything he didn't want was everything I was, is also a nod to Kanye West's song Everything I Am, in which he sings the chorus, everything I'm not made for made me everything I am. Proposed suggestion, the line caused everything to be didn't want was everything I was. Well, it could be a nod to everything I am. Kendrick is also talking about his father wanted to mold him as this traditional, tough, emotionally stoic man. However, Kendrick is the opposite. He was emotional and expressive by nature, but hid that from his father and himself in order to avoid ridicule. Kendrick is everything that his father didn't want him to be, and the song is him coming clean about the impact that relationship has had on his life and relationship. And the truth is, this happens a lot of times because as parents, the main goal is they're trying to protect their children. They're trying to make the child not suffer or the child not be what the parent wants that kid to be. But a lot of times kids are that, it's like, I don't want you to be a musician, but I am a musician. Music is the only thing that I know and understand. But for the parents, like, music is a lot of drugs. I've seen a lot of pain, a lot of this, a lot of that. I don't want you to be involved in that. And then what tends to happen is kids are that, So I really like this line. Powerful line. Till then, let's give the women a break. Grown men with daddy issues. Powerful line where he acknowledges that he put Whitney through all of this trauma because of his own unaddressed trauma that was afflicted by his father. Too often it's seen to be the woman's job to help the man be better and do better. Too often it's the woman's job to be a great parent and still instill good morals in the children. Too often is it seen to not be a man's job to be in touch with their feelings, their emotions, and how that affects others. Kendrick is sending a powerful message to male listeners to break the cycle and take ownership for your impact on others. Get help, talk about it. Don't unconsciously follow your ego or what your ego drives you to do. Anyway, he goes into my partners that figure out without a father. I salute you. May your blessings be neutral to your toddlers. It's crucial. They can't stop us if we see the mistakes. In verse 2, when he talks about a lot of times when you're raised without a father, you're raised by your mother, right? And a lot of times you overcompensate, you overdo a lot of things, and you never really know what it means to be a man, because you have to learn what it means to be a man for somebody. So in order to become, say, a father without ever having been a father, it's difficult because you're now playing a role that you wish you had, and you walk into it unaware. You walk into it with no knowledge. So a lot of men, especially unfathered men, have to figure it out. They have to understand that, oh, I'm playing a new role, starting from scratch, showing love to my wife by being there for my child, and having an understanding. Because you were raised by women, you know how to express how you feel. It's very difficult to hide how you feel because your mother always wanted to know how you're feeling at all costs, right? So I like that he brings this up and gives a shout out to them, because a lot of times we all have daddy issues, and not having a father in your life is also a daddy issue that we should all consider.
Early morning wake ups, practicing on day offs. Tough love, bottled up, no chase I need, no chase I need, no chase I need, no chase I need, no chase I need.
Yeah, man. That concludes the song Father Time. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of the song. What was your interpretation of the song? Do you agree with Genius's interpretation, with my interpretation of the lyrics? We learn a lot from Kendrick's album. It's a phenomenal album. I know a lot of people have been critical of it in terms of sales and what people are expecting. It's just the time that we're living. People are constantly looking for hits upon hits or whatever. But what I feel like, there's a conscious message that he was sending. And in this song, man, I really took a lot from it. From first listening, I was listening to it from a person without a father, and I thought that's what he was talking about. But as I was doing this one with you guys, I started to learn that he's talking from a person with a father, and the daddy issues that they face. A lot of times people with fathers, they live a life where when you don't have a dad, you look at them and you're like, man, I wish I had that. I wish I had a father who would come to my games. I wish I had a father who was supportive. I wish I had a father who would help pay my bills, who would help be there for my mama, who would love on my mama, who would do all these things. But a lot of times it's not as rosy as that, because they grow up super competitive. They have to impress their dads. They have to do a lot of things for their fathers. And life is not always as rosy as it seems. So you learn, I learned from this song. I learned a lot. And for me, I know eventually I'm going to have to figure it out when I become a father. I'm going to have to figure out a lot of things, which is hard, which is, it's a journey in itself that you have to experience and have an understanding of what it means to have a dad, what it means to have someone take responsibility for you, and for me to take responsibility for another human being and give them life and provide for them and do the things that are necessary, be emotionally available, be everything that a child needs from their father, and pay attention when they need it. It's not something that comes easy, I guess, but eventually it's something that you can learn and attain. I just want to reiterate that I really appreciate Kendrick and his album, and we'll be looking at all songs every week. One song next week, we might look at a J. Cole song just to spice it up. You guys let me know which songs you like me to check out and just do a breakdown of the lyrics on. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.